Hello and good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Trust TV's Daybreak. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you very much for joining us this beautiful, lovely Thursday morning. And as always, it promises to be quite engaging, informative, as we bring topical issues to the fore and discuss them, giving you perspectives to understand how best to digest some of the developments in the country. And we are going to talk about something that I believe everyone has an opinion about, especially over the recent development in Nigeria. Some of the recent developments also that continues to inundate the thoughts and minds of most Nigerians is the continued dollarization of our economy. The Naira free fall continues as the local currency continues to plunge against the almighty powerful dollar. What does this mean for our economy? We can already tell what it is doing to our pockets and to our purchasing power. Unfortunately, all these stopgap measures that have been put in place to stop the free fall of the Naira is not having the desired effect, especially as goods and services continue to witness the skyrocketing increment of prices affecting the lives and livelihoods of Nigerians. It's a day before the quarterfinals, before the Super Eagles take on Angola in what promises to definitely be an exciting encounter. And one was making an argument about how the Africa Cup of Nations is giving you that is over delivering in terms of the entertainment that you usually get from continental football. But it is, of course, the best of the best in Africa, and it's good to see that the rest of the world is catching up to what African football has to offer. Speaking of what to offer, give us 1 hour, 50 minutes or so of your time. In return, we'll give you good value for your time by giving you up-to-date latest information of developments around the country. Talking about developments around the country, let's take a quick look at our headlines this morning. Bureau de Change operators shut down business in Abuja. Why are they doing that? We'll get to the details in just a moment. Police bust internet fraud syndicate for swindling KASU students of 60 million naira. And federal government to reform NYC, float special bank for youths. It's a good idea. Let's see some of the details now. Bureau de Change operators in Abuja are shutting down their operations as a result of the unavailability of dollars. Chairman of the association, Malam Abdullahi Dauran, announced this in the nation's capital on Wednesday. He attributed the development to online business transactions and the emergence of cryptocurrency. Dauran said the closure of businesses would take effect from Thursday, 1st of February 2024. The closing rate at the Nigeria Autonomous Foreign Exchange window closed on Tuesday night at 1,486 naira 57 kobo to the dollar, a bit higher than when it closed previously at 1,460 naira. On Tuesday, the parallel market maintained its exchange rate, holding steady at 1,460 naira to the dollar without any depreciation. Now, additionally, the official investors and exporters window saw the naira closing at 1,482 naira 57 kobo, reflecting a 9.94% decline or loss of 133 naira 95 kobo compared to the previous day's rate of 1,348. Now, 3 cyberspace operators have been arrested by the Kaduna State Police for defrauding unsuspecting students of the Kaduna State University of 60 million naira in tuition fees. The suspects allegedly compromised the university's registration portal and exploited students who opted for online payments. The Command's Public Relations Officer, ASP Mansur Hassan, disclosed this on Wednesday, saying that the suspected fraudsters have defrauded over 300 students of the university. According to the police spokesperson, the syndicate will collect full tuition fees from the students, but only deposit a fraction in the state's treasury single account. Then they would manipulate the electronic transaction receipts to show the complete payment, and this elaborate scheme allowed them to steal over 60 million naira from about 300 students. Now, he says the alleged mastermind used the stolen funds to build and furnish a house, purchase a car and electronic devices, as well as acquire lands in Kaduna and Kwara State. All three suspects have been formally charged and are awaiting prosecution. Kudos to the police for quite an investigation and quick response to arresting the perpetrators of this unfortunate development. But of course, concern about the 300 students affected. What happens to their situation regarding the payment of their fees? I do hope that they don't have to suffer the pain of having to pay again. We know how difficult the times are in the country at the moment. But speaking of how difficult times are and what students or youths may be opportune to take advantage of, the federal government has announced initiatives to transform the prospects and opportunities for Nigerian youth. The initiative includes a reform of the National Youth Service Score to focus more on ensuring when young people finish school, they are ready to obtain good jobs or start their own businesses. Additionally, the establishment of the Next Gen Bank in April this year will assist young Nigerians with funding to start their own entrepreneurial projects. Other initiatives include implementing a mandatory 30% quota in government appointments to amplify youth voices in decision-making and the construction of 3 youth villages in Niger, Katsina, and Ebonyi State, among others. The Minister of Youth Development, Dr. Jamila Bayo Ibrahim, unveiled the reform agenda in Abuja on Wednesday while outlining a visionary roadmap for empowering the nation's young population. The minister and the president's vision for the youth of Nigeria is transformative, according to the minister, saying that it encompasses comprehensive education and skills development, empowerment through various initiatives and effective engagement at all levels. Now, let's bring you some more news stories now. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has uncovered a religious organization involved in money laundering to finance terrorism in Nigeria. The commission also says it has secured a total of 747 convictions over the course of out of 2,000 petitions accepted by the commission over the last 100 days. The chairman of the commission, Ola Olukoyede, stated this at the launch of the Interfaith Manuals seminar aimed at enhancing the fight against corruption in Nigeria. Trust TV's Yusuf Akogu was there and now reports.
These eminent Nigerians, religious leaders and young people are gathered here to drum support for the EFCC and the fight against corruption in the country. Speaking at this one-day dialogue on anti-corruption, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commissions, Ola Olukoyede, who appreciates the support of Nigerians, said the fight against corruption requires all hands to be on deck. The EFCC's boss revelation that some religious bodies are providing protection for terrorists has put question mark on some religious sects in the country.
That's the matter we are handling. A pyramid scheme of that involved over 30 billion naira fleeced from Nigeria. Along the line, some people died, some victims, collapsed and all of that. We were able to trace about over 7 billion to a particular religious body. And so what did I do? I said, look, write a letter to the leader of that religious sect. We did. And the next thing we saw was a restraining order. The money traced to that religious organization to their leaders. We got a restraining order stopping us from inviting them, stopping us from recovering the money.
Traditional and religious leaders here are calling on young people to be agents of change in the society while adhering to the virtue of honesty.
Let us demonstrate very clearly always by our way of life that honesty is possible and rewarding. Moral education, therefore, is key to empowering the youth with the right, timeless value to make ethical decisions and hold themselves and others accountable for their actions.
As religious leaders,
will invite you for a closed-door interactive session on what we should do as religious leaders at the direct level when we do meet, so that all the Christian and Islamic leaders will be there to really talk with you, discuss with you in a constructive manner, so that you will really tell us the truth about so many of these things that we hear or we read in social media and what you think we could do. And then we can now go back to our churches and mosques and other places to really fight this corruption.
We are the problems of this country. We are the problems of actually the mirror that we are showing the youth, because they do believe that nobody is there for them. Nobody is standing for them. So why can't they go into so many immoral acts, Yahoo, and all what have you, a lot of cybercrime, because there is a clear disconnect between the leaders and the led.
The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was represented by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, said young people, traditional institutions and religious leaders must join government and other relevant agencies to ensure that corruption is reduced to the barest minimum.
The government is aware that our ambitious goal of eradicating internet offenses and corruption demands an atmosphere steeped in trust and integrity. We must foster open communication channels and ensure that law enforcement actions align with justice and accountability. We must always remind our young people that abundant opportunities for lawful enterprises exist within and beyond our shores.
There is a unanimous agreement among stakeholders here that for Nigeria to move forward and compete globally, the fight against corruption must be fought and won collectively. Yusuf Akogu, Trust Television News, Abuja.
Now, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, remains a formidable opposition in Nigeria despite the seeming instability, and the lack of cohesion within its ranks, according to the Adamawa State Governor, Ahmadu Umaru Fintri. The governor, whose re-election victory was affirmed by the Supreme Court, restated his commitment and his administration's goal to actualizing the dreams and aspirations of the people of Adamawa State through good and transparent government. In an exclusive interview on Trust TV after successfully winning the final battle for his re-election as governor of Adamawa State at the Supreme Court, Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintri says the verdict has solidified his government's commitment to implementing people-oriented policies for sustainable growth and development.
I came prepared with my programs, which have been availing them to the good people of my state, ensuring that we bring the kind of development, both capital and human, that will take my people and the state to a greater height. So I have never been distracted to think one day that I am not the governor.
Speaking on the political developments in the PDP, Fintri says despite what many think of the seeming disarray in the party, the PDP remains a functional and formidable opposition to the APC government.
If you are talking about playing a viral opposition, it is still early. This government needs to be given time. We are in a multiple crisis in this country. So we should not be boxing or putting every government into a corner that it cannot work for the interest of for the national interest. We should also be having at the back of my mind that there's time to play politics and there's time to play governance.
While speaking on the economic challenges facing Adamawa State, the governor highlighted the changing landscape and fortunes of the state due to an effective turnaround in policy and governance.
We are not one of the richest, but in terms of development, we are catching up with the developed states in the country. And I want to ensure by end of 8 years, if we are not one of the 2 best, we should be ranked among the 5 best states in the country in terms of turnaround development in our state. And we have also ensured that we made Adamawa as one of the hubs of cattle in the country.
The full 30 minutes interview The rest of that interview will come your way on Trust TV on February 5th at 7:30 p.m. Well, following the inauguration of the Tripartite Committee on the National Minimum Wage, some civil servants have expressed delight at the chances of getting an increment to their minimum wage as the economic climate in the country continues to bite harder. Most public and private sector workers believe that the increment would ease the current hardship experienced by most Nigerians since the removal of fuel subsidy in the country. From Gombe, Hassan Lawan Koli reports.
Public servants across the country have welcomed the news of the constitution of a committee to review the minimum wage in the country. Al-Amin Halilu, a local government worker, says the current minimum wage of 30,000 naira is not enough to cater himself alone, let alone his family.
I am happy
that the government wants to review the minimum wage. We are in critical economic condition, and to serve our current needs, the minimum wage must be at least 150,000 naira because our current salary cannot even sustain us for a week. Although Abdul Mumin Abubakar, another worker, is eagerly awaiting a salary increase, he is however worried that the development could trigger an increase in commodities, especially for food items.
The issue of minimum wage is a very critical issue in this country because we have seen the way things are increasing in the market, especially when it's come to food. If you want to buy something in the market, you go to market, you want to buy something today, 5,000, tomorrow it's going to be 6,000. So I want to use this medium to appeal to the committee to look into the issue of the way things are increasing. The federal government should establish a committee for monitoring, the way people are selling their goods. If you can just wake up in the morning, you just decided to sell your things without making, what is going on in the country, it will not going to help the citizens in the country.
Some business owners in Gombe view the planned minimum wage increment as a welcome development on the one hand, but have reservations that it will also have a negative impact on their businesses and their employees.
We must follow the instruction from the government because we are all under government. We will add money like AP government say. So the payment we will make to our staff, it will affect us because we are suffering. What I need in these positions, we need government interventions. There is most government intervention for private organizations like us because if we say we will continue fair salary at minimum wage, we are running at loss. So it's two things will be happening. Whether we close the business and go for other one, or we reduce our staff. So if we reduce our staff at this level, so there are many unemployment available in the country. So what do you think? That's why I say we must need a government intervention at this level.
According to World Bank, Nigeria's poverty rate rose from 50% in 2018 to 46% in 2023, with many people living below the poverty line due to the sluggish economic growth and rising inflation. Hassan Lawan Koli, Trust TV News, Gombe.
And in Kaduna State, leaders of political parties have charged the Independent National Electoral Commission to conduct free, fair and acceptable polls in the rerun exercise in the state. They gave the charge at the INEC headquarters in Kaduna during the distribution of sensitive materials to affected local government areas where the rerun exercise will hold. Bello Musa tells us more.
The distribution of the sensitive materials was conducted in the presence of representatives of the political parties, security personnel, and other stakeholders.
As we can see on ground now, things are going very well. but we don't know tomorrow. But today, things are very, very well.
Well, there are no any problem. Me and my colleague for other party, we are satisfied all their preparation. Also that we go through all the material, and also we satisfy with the material.
You know, as usual, you will see elaborate arrangements, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the election matter, where it matters, you'll be disappointed. Like that of Kachiaka Garko, we are highly disappointed because there was no logo party of Labour Party. There was no logo. That was why the election is cancelled, and we are going for a rerun.
Considering the security challenges bedeviling the state, they are appealing to the electorate to maintain peace during the election.
INEC should try and be free and conduct free and fair election so that everybody will be satisfied. If there is free and fair election, there will be no litigation. We hope this time around there will be no litigation, but if again we feel cheated, we'll go back to court again and maybe they'll order for a re-election again.
Expecting free, fair election, free violence, so that people will conduct their election in peaceful way.
The rerun election will take place in several local government areas in Kaduna State, namely Chikun, Igabi, Kaduna South, Kajuru, Kachia, Kagarko, and Kudal local government. Bella Musa, Trust TV News.
And with Bello's report, we end the news update at this hour. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back on Daybreak, we'll be looking at a diverse issue around the litigations in the aftermath of the 2023 general elections. Some of them, if not most of them, have actually been concluded. And of course, there are some takeaways that need to be interrogated, especially in the aftermath of what many describe was justice, sacrifice at the altar of judgment. More on that conversation coming up ahead after the break. Join us again. Welcome back to the program. Thank you very much for staying with us on Daybreak on Trust TV. A quick reminder, you can watch the show on the go by joining our YouTube live stream and, of course, Facebook live stream as always to catch up with the conversation on the show on the go. Of course, you can also follow us across our other social media platforms so you don't miss out on any of our content. Back here in the studio, let's set the ball in motion for today's conversation as Nigerian courts have now become a permanent fixture in the electoral process, deciding, of course, the fate of the people as those electoral contestations are always taken to the various courts for various litigations, seeking interpretation for the various provisions in our electoral laws. The Supreme Court has been, of course, dispensing some of those cases, bringing it to an end, all the legal battles that have been standing in the way, especially in relation to the governorship elections across the country. Some of them quite contentious. The most notable ones, of course, Kano, Plateau, Zamfara, and recently Adamawa State, which has been laid to rest following the affirmation of the election victory of Governor Ahmadu Umaru Finchi over the APC's claim to get clarity over the announcement that was previously made by the now ousted resident electoral commissioner in the state. So we're going to talk about that and a lot more of what Nigerians have come to witness over the course of the past few months in the aftermath of the 2023 general elections. Joining us on the program is one who has a lot of experience in the courts, not prosecuting, but of course litigating some of these cases in connection with elections. Also a constitutional lawyer, former dean, Faculty of Law at the Nasarawa State University, Professor Maxwell Gidado is joining us this morning on Daybreak. Prof, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Right. I'm just wondering, as a law practitioner yourself, what do you make of the role the courts have been playing in our electoral system? There are some who really think elections should be won and lost on election day, and that should be the end of the story. The courts deciding who gets what, when, where, and how is sort of like an aberration to the democratic, idea. What are your thoughts about that?
Yes, I equally belong to that school of thought that says or thinks that the judiciary are not supposed to be the be-all and end-all as far as elections are concerned. Like you said, elections are supposed to be won and lost at the ballot casting point. As soon as the collation takes place and results are announced, ideally, that is where a victor is supposed to emerge, and he who has lost should congratulate the victor. That is an ideal democracy. But in the event, that's where the judiciary comes in. In the event that there is a dispute, there is a disagreement, there is some aspect of dissatisfaction, either with the process or with some actions or omissions of the actors, then people have the right to ventilate their position before the courts. And that is where the judiciary comes in. And as a matter of fact, the role of the judiciary is supposed to be an arbiter. The judiciary is supposed to just come in to see that where these actors or where the process goes wrong or it's being manipulated, judiciary is supposed to come in and save the democratic process and ensure that the rightful candidate put all the facts and the law, before them to now pronounce the rightful winner. But you see, it is now becoming a trend. It's sad that it's becoming it's now a commentary in Nigeria that is as if when elections take place, it's not the electorates, that will decide who would be in the office at the end of the day, but it depends on who the courts decides. That will be the person that will take over the office. So it's very sad.
And in talking about the quality of the judgment we've seen so far, we've seen so many that made Nigerians scratch their head. Even legal minds like yours are finding it difficult to explain to the layman why the courts decided to go the way they did. What is your take on the quality of the judgment we've seen over the past few months in the aftermath of the 2023 elections?
Yes, I must admit, some had been transparent, some had really touched on the various aspects that the law, in other words, they gave justice. They gave rulings and judgments that the electorates felt, yes, this was what they voted, this was the person they voted for. But in some, honestly, it leaves much to be desired. The judiciary some judges took the Nigerian public by surprise, because it is sometimes you see it very clear, some even with precedents, the Supreme Court saying so matters are pre-election matters, or so matters, you are not supposed to be a party to challenge, such a case, because you don't belong to that party. You'll be taken to be a meddlesome interloper. You will be taken as somebody who is meddling into a party affairs that does not belong to you. So the laid down rules are there. But you will see, was surprised, to come and see the judiciary put this or turn everything on their head and decide against the precedent that was even set by the highest court of the land. So these were some of those ones that really took someone like me, in the legal profession.
And
by surprise.
You do have, the new edition of the Electoral Act 2022, which is supposed to be, the guardrail, so to say, of how we interpret some of these laws, where these regulations apply, and things like that. Is the law not clear enough to a point where the judges now have to use their discretion to interpret it?
Yes, you see, as far as I'm concerned, there is no law that is perfect. The Electoral Act 2022 is a great improvement on the previous electoral laws that we've had. But it still leaves much to be desired. Because if I may even pick at random, some of the lacuna. Because when you talk of a gap, a legal gap in any law is described as a lacuna. One of the biggest lacunas that I can, decipher, or that I can just remember offhand now, is this law that says INEC staff, whether permanent or ad hoc, can at a given point in time meddle into the affairs of the election, and any mistake they make, it will be deemed as, or whatever correction or omission or commission that they perceive to have made, will be taken as being okay, unless it is reversed by any court of law. I don't see the need for that kind of law, because it is very clear, both the Electoral Act, the Constitution, and the INEC guidelines, election guidelines, they state very clearly the duties of every officer, every participant in an election matter, right from the very day, is it the umpire, INEC's role, staff of INEC, from the resident electoral commissioner down to the polling unit agent. Your roles are all spelled out. It's there in the law. So what scenario are you kind of thinking about? Where is it? Are you thinking of a situation where, for instance, one of the officers will elope, maybe the REC or the returning officer might be missing, and then you can now come in and make an announcement, because the roles are all spelled out. So to me,
you think there are some ambiguities there?
Yes, there's an ambiguity here, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a law that's supposed not to allow an INEC staff that will come and do an act of commission or omission, which might even go contrary to any of either the Constitution or the Electoral Act or even the guidelines. But you are saying, and the circumstances are not even spelled out. And they said if they do such, it will be deemed to have been done correctly.
I suppose that's part of the argument the APC was making in the case of Adamawa State that was finally put to bed or put to rest yesterday at the Supreme Court, where the argument was for the Supreme Court to affirm the pronouncement made by the then resident electoral commissioner, Hudu Ari, in Adamawa State, which was later overturned even by the commission itself. Give me a sense of what the arguments were and how things like this, should, be marked as a turning point, so to say, even, when we talk about amendments to the electoral laws or improvements to the electoral laws in the country.
Yes, you can see, as I said, this lacuna or this gap that I'm talking about, and the laws that don't come to help matters, is specifically that section 149, which your lordships yesterday, with due respect to them, described such an act in very, very unprintable words, such as they said is ridiculous and is even criminal. Because how do you perceive a situation where you are, and you are a resident electoral commissioner, you are in charge of the INEC office at the Adamawa end in the state, and you know very well that the results of an election was inconclusive. While results, the by-election took place, the results were just coming in. More than 10 states, more than 10 local governments results were being expected to come in. And before even these results came in, a REC had the audacity to sneak in. Luckily, I was even one of the personal dramatists, because as a representative of my party from my local government, I came with my result. My result was announced that very night, the night before the previous day when the drama took place. So we were told that because it was even a fasting period, they said, okay, let's all leave now because we're still expecting 10 more local governments and the results have not come in. So we believe by 11 tomorrow morning, all results will have come in, so that we don't break again and we now go ahead one swoop and announce all the results. Then all of a sudden, we were shocked in the morning. By 9, we just had, someone just drew our attention to the fact that the REC, and you see, one funny thing is that we had it on good authority, that even Hudu Ari, by the time he made that criminal act, that criminal announcement, he had been removed as the resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa State. So when armed with all this, why would he go and make any announcement? And even making the announcement, what results were you announcing? When except you are now saying you have discountenanced the results that were declared inconclusive, and a rerun was.
Are you surprised that the APC ran with that as, you know, the heart and soul of their argument?
Yes, I was so shocked, because I believe that was what they were arguing, because there was even a statement that the candidate said, go ahead and announce my name, let them go to court. I mean, this was the drama, you know, that played out. So Hudu was now hinging on it and just said, well, if I make an announcement, Section 149 will apply, and they will have no other option but to just declare the candidate that I have announced as the winner as the governor, and the person that lost can go to the tribunal. So we were so shocked, because you had to wait until all the results are turned in, and it is the duty of the returning officer who will now do the adding up of all the results as they come in. He does the final adding up, or she does the final adding up, the collation, and then they announce the results. You now declare the winner. This is what the law, that's what the electoral guideline says. So we were all taken aback when that announcement was made. And true to type, if you know what you did was legit, why did you run? Why don't you stay and defend it? He just vamoosed. He left Yola immediately, and that was it. Hence, INEC now had to step in and conclude the elections, and the rightful winner was announced. And we were shocked that they pursued this matter right to the Supreme Court.
Right. And in doing this particularly, we will always talk about how the wheel of justice is being clogged with one too many cases. I think His Lordship, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, had talked about this some few months ago, how the political, or rather the electoral matters, usually during this time overtake all the other cases at some of these courts because of the time factor attached to it. Do you think there's a way we could fast track some of these processes, so much so that these cases, because of an amendment, may not even exist to begin with? I mean, as clear as this one is, I mean, the provisions are there. The returning officer does the collation, does the announcement, but this is an aberration. And there are so many other cases that we can pinpoint with regards to the past elections. Do you think an amendment is going to be enough, or is there something within the judicial system itself that needs to change to address some of these flagrant issues, as many have described?
The best way of going about it is by amending both the Electoral Act and the Evidence Act. Why the two? I believe the two go pari passu, because if you look at the Electoral Act, the reasons, why people take issues or matters to court and the duration it takes, that can be taken care of. Because if you look at other crimes, why must it be that it's only in Nigeria, for instance, where cases will go on, someone will be sworn in, and he will still be having cases going on, against him from a tribunal right up to the Supreme Court, Apex Court. And that's what is taking all these humongous processes and the length of time it takes. You can see the distraction does to governance. So I believe if the Electoral Act is amended, then the issue of the evidence, in the Evidence Act, when you come to prove some of the grounds or the reasons or the procedures you would take to prove that a particular case has been meted out or has been fully prosecuted in the court are all stated in the Evidence Act. And that is why the judges, their hands are always tied. You see them make court instances. There are about 40 local governments, and you are challenging the winner, but you only produce 3 witnesses. So you see, their perception is that you must bring as many witnesses as possible, because that's what the Evidence Act says. For you to prove any point, you must be able to adduce evidence that will be able to at least satisfy the judge, satisfy the court, for you to be given judgment. But if it is made in such a way that, if you, for instance, say when it comes to election matters, all these frivolities, all these nitty-gritties can be set aside, and you go expeditiously and deliver the judgment so that people will be, before you are sworn in, all litigations must have ended. So it is only when such amendments are made, because it is not just a policy statement that either the Chief Justice of Nigeria or the President of the Court of Appeal or any chairman of a tribunal that comes and says, these are my ground rules. They will all go by the laws of the land, i.e. they're being governed by the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the INEC guidelines, which draws its authority from the Constitution.
Right. Over the past few weeks, we've seen the Supreme Court become the center of attraction and attention also regarding the judgments that were hanging in the balance, especially Kano, Plateau State, and Zamfara State. I mean, they pretty much dispensed with 7 cases on that said day, but these were the states that people had doubts about, you know, which way it could go. But at the heart of it is, you know, whether the judgment will be in alignment with what was perceived to be the mandate of the people given to the incumbent governors in those states. And for the most part, Nigerians were breathing a sigh of relief that, you know, nothing dramatic happened at the end of the day. But in Plateau State, we've seen over the past 2 weeks, state lawmakers now say, listen, since the governor survived, you know, the same battle that was used to conquer us and declare our positions invalid, we're going to take it back. And we saw them march to the State Assembly complex, or at least where the State Assembly sits for its parliamentary duty, to say, listen, based on the Supreme Court judgment, we think that we're the rightful winners in our elections, and what the Court of Appeal did was, in fact, an aberration of the law. Give me a sense of, you did talk about this earlier, when you talk about there were precedents, and unfortunately some of these precedents do not apply. Why does it appear that, you know, sometimes the court cherry picks what, you know, precedents to use in some of these cases when it's clearly spelled out?
It was very unfortunate with what happened to the lawmakers at the Plateau State House of Assembly, as well, right from the Senate down to the House of Assembly. Now, and I take it that it is sad, it's a sad commentary that they cannot get any help presently. Because what the law says is that their matters will terminate at the Court of Appeal. And in so doing, the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, now had to wade in. And they did that with all sense of responsibility. And they were very firm in saying the judgment of the lower court, i.e. the Court of Appeal, was wrong. In a sense that there was a Supreme Court ruling or a Supreme Court series of Supreme Court judgments to the effect.
Before now?
Yes, before now. Yeah, before even the case came before them, that all issues regarding parties, primaries, picking up and nomination of parties and members by parties, how you get tickets from a party. The Supreme Court is very clear about that. It says if you don't belong to the same party, in other words, if it is primaries to be conducted by PDP, for you to have the locus standi, to be able to sue, for you to have that place of standing to sue, you must belong to PDP, and you must even be a participant, a party in that primaries, such that if there's any problem arising from the primaries, you and only you would have the locus standi to sue. But a sister party or another party that party doesn't have the right, the legal right to sue or to complain or have any issue
and
to
do you
with those
understand
primaries. It's very clear.
Can you explain the principle behind that?
Yeah, the principle behind that is very simple and it's logical. You see, if I belong to a particular party, you also belong to a party. And in the process of our primaries, we went through the whole gamut of our party processes. And to us, as far as we are concerned, we followed our party rules and guidelines. in nominating our candidates that will run for our posts. How do you expect someone from another party to now complain that the process of how our candidates emerged was not proper because we had no structure? I mean, what's your business in our party affair? The only place where you have maybe an issue, they said where you have a locus, is after the elections. After the elections. If you notice the other party that you contested with had issues, for instance, maybe he was able to pass through the screening of his party with a fake certificate, and you are aware that he has a fake certificate, you don't have a locus before, but after you've now joined matters with him, you've contested.
It's now about
then
the
you
election.
can now change. It's now election. It's now an election issue. It's no longer a pre-election matter. So this was the logic, and I entirely agree with that logic. Wait until we get to the elections, and you are now suing me, and we've had the elections, the same elections, we contested for the same office, and you discover I have an issue with any of my credentials or with the way I emerged, then you can now take it up. So, but you see, the issue in the plateau was that APC said the PDP had no structure.
Right.
So whatever was the result of any person that emerged from that party was null and void ab initio, and that such a person wasn't qualified to even start or contest the election. And that was what went through. The tribunal allowed it. It also went to the Court of Appeal, surprisingly, because the Court of Appeal is quite aware of this very decision, which as I also want to stress, that in law, as far as what we teach our law students, is concerned, there is the principle of stare decisis. There is the principle of precedence. You have to superior courts, decisions of superior courts on same matter is supposed to be followed by junior courts, by the lower courts. Exactly. So it was we found it very strange, what the Court of Appeal did. And hence, all eyes were on the Supreme Court to see whether the Supreme Court would toe the line because there would have been chaos.
Now, how do we course correct this going forward? Because there are so many angry supporters, so many disappointed politicians who are frustrated by the system that has apparently robbed them. I mean, one of the senators yesterday convened a press conference asking President Tinubu not to, okay one of the justices to the Supreme Court bench because of, his loss in one of the cases that he thought was quite, unacceptable. But give me a sense of what we need to do, especially with the judicial system, to address that. Issues around the principle of precedence, for instance, is supposed to be there, as you stated. From law school, you learn some of these.
Precisely.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we course correct this? Because you hear lawmakers or politicians and supporters who lose out in these cases say, listen, let's all go to the Supreme Court then and get justice, because that's where the buck stops.
You see, initially, I was one of those that never wanted the Supreme Court to be saddled with too many cases. Right now, as we speak, the Supreme Court is overloaded. They have thousands of cases, surprisingly, that are pending before the Supreme Court. And we thought they shouldn't be distracted, or they shouldn't be more overwhelmed by additional cases, particularly most of these election matters. My earlier view was that they should all terminate at the Court of Appeal. Most of them, even the gubernatorial and the presidential and what have you. But with the present development, what has happened? I'm beginning to have a change of mind. Otherwise, the only other option would be for the judges to be sanctioned. Because if you sack or you punish a judge, or those judges that would sit down and not go against a case that has a precedent set by the Supreme Court, such a judge is not allowed to continue to work the next day. He should be sacked. And you see the rest. It will be a deterrent that they will take notice.
And do you think we have that? I know we have the NJC.
Yeah, the NJC is there.
But do you think there's a structure that, you know, allows for something like this, that says, listen, the quality of your judgment is not in alignment with what is expected. Therefore, we either have a review and correct it because there's a burden, you know, to right or wrong, or we could punish the judge, because Nigerians will say we've not seen anything like this happen before.
Yes, there's a structure in place, just as you said. The first is for either the litigants who lost, or the Nigerian Bar Association, or any interested person in the general public to petition. Petition to the NJC. And in the agency, you follow that petition and you go and defend and explain what made you, you know, to do this. And if you are able to satisfy the NJC, that's the role of the NJC. Appointment, promotions, as well as the punishment of any erring judge. So if that happens, it's just the political will that might be lacking. Yeah. But the structure, the opportunity that the NJC can take, you know, to make sure that erring judges or any judge, because as you can see, they've done a lot of injustice to this over 22 plus either 3 and 7 or so. This is a lot of injustice has been done to these people. They've just been thrown out of the business and out of their offices for no fault of theirs, but because of a sheer judicial rascality, if I may use that word, you know, by the judges, for not following what the due process and not following what the law, you know, what they swore. You know, they were going to dispense justice, you know, according to law and in accordance with the dictates.
Do you think, Prof, when it comes to our election jurisprudence, that we are improving? Because sometimes it appears that, you know, we're taking 2 steps forward, and then the next minute we're taking 3 steps backward. What is your take on this one? Because after the 2019 elections, in the case of Imo, for instance, a lot of people were bashing the Nigerian Supreme Court for declaring the person who came forth as a winner of that election. And now it appears that the Supreme Court has, you know, regained its, you know, public trust of some sort by, you know, doing this. Now the appeal court is taking much of the heat. What are your thoughts about whether we're moving in the right direction when it comes to election jurisprudence?
Let me say thank God the cases are minimal. When you compare to the gamut of the whole cases, you know, that went through all the election processes and even the judiciary generally. Now, if we can mention just 2 or 3 or 4 instances, you can say as far as our electoral jurisprudence is concerned, we are inching, we're moving forward. And you could see from the general public and also the Supreme Court coming out to make pronouncements where lower courts, you know, err. We want to believe that we will never see such ugly incidences again. Because if there had been silence about it, or if people never talked against it, and we all thought it was like business as usual, or it's something that it's been expected, then that's where I would have said we're in trouble. As far as our electoral jurisprudence is concerned, we will just say we're retrogressing instead of progressing. But by and large, when you look at all the cases that went through, and if you can just decipher in comparison those ones that let the judiciary down, that made the judiciary get the bashing, you know, it got, they are minimal compared to the rest or the majority of the cases where they dispensed justice. And people are satisfied and happy. Because you could see, honestly, the last judgments, the last few weeks by the Supreme Court really put hope back, you know, on the masses and the citizenry in the country as far as elections are concerned. Because they thought all this, what took place at the tribunal and the Court of Appeal would finally also end up in the same way in the Supreme Court. Because there would have been chaos in this country.
I mean, you both understand these 2 different constituencies that we're talking about, the politics and then the operations of the judiciary. And in the build-up to some of these judgments being read, we've seen some not so positive commentary on the insinuations that Mr. President is not interfering with the process, while it does appear on face value as a good comment, it does suggest that he has some pull to even influence in the first place to begin with. So in the aftermath of some of these pronouncements by the Apex Court, the controversy or the speculation in the public domain is that maybe the governors signed a deal with the president or the presidency or with the leadership of the APC to get this favorable judgment, because usually the expectation is that because the APC is the ruling party, they could easily have, influence the decision. As, a luminary yourself, where do you stand on how truly independent our judiciary is, especially when comments around, oh, thank you, Mr. President, for not interfering and for, allowing justice to prevail. Where do you stand on comments like that and the impact it may have on the quality and the perception of how independent our judiciary is?
I wasn't really happy, on reading such comments in the papers and also listening to, people make comments, on the televisions, as the fact that they are happy and they thank Mr. President for not interfering. You see, it doesn't give a good taste. It's as if the norm is that the president normally interferes, so which is not supposed to be the case. The judiciary, ab initio, is supposed to be independent, and nobody, no arm of the government should be able to come in and influence, the wheel of justice, as far as dispensation of justice in whatever aspect, whether election matters or non-election matters. But it leaves a very bad taste. And the statement or the saying that the governors went and met the president, and I think this is all speculative, because it will be very difficult for you to prove, to get any evidence that this was what transpired, or this was what they, maybe unless you were there, you were at the meeting, and you have any cause to prove that this was the deal they struck. But otherwise, you will just dismiss all this as being speculative.
But do you think, Prof, our judges are beholden to politicians because they appoint them to those positions? Do you think that, in a way, makes them feel indebted to them?
Yes, I will agree to the fact that there are some bad eggs. There are some bad eggs. There are some judges that bend over backwards, and maybe get some gratification from politicians. And in that process, they do their bidding, which is also very, very, very sad, very, very unfortunate. Because when we were young and at the law school, when we were at the university, the caliber of judges, both from the High Court, is most especially at the Supreme Court, you would never ever hear of even the mere allegation or any speculation, that you hear nowadays. Judges are being given millions of dollars. I mean, it was unheard of. There was even a judge that was interviewed. I remember Justice Anegolu, or one of these justices. My lord said, when an allegation was made that they were bribed, the my lord said, and they mentioned the millions. In those days, now people are talking of billions. In those days, my lord said, if he sees 1 million, he said he will faint. He will collapse. 1 million cash, and they say it is his, or it's being given to him legit, not even an illegitimate or dirty money, but his own. Maybe it's either they put his claims together or his salaries together. Maybe he hasn't been paid for some months, and they now give him at the soup 1 million. My lord said he will just collapse. But nowadays, when you hear allegations of, because when you talk of millions of dollars translates into billions of naira. And so if our judges can be that, corrupt and can be that bad to take such a humongous amount of money. But as I said, all this is mere speculation. Because unless and until you have evidence to prove, you saw the account number, or you saw when the monies were being given to them. But otherwise, it's your word against my word. But it is having a very bad taste on the judiciary. And that is why it is good that they just, like the way the Supreme Court acquitted itself, as well as by extension the judiciary, in those judgments, not minding whose ox is God. the APC is the ruling party. So whether APC loses in 10 states, they pronounce that yes, it has lost in those 10 states. People will respect the judiciary. But a situation where, because Mr. President has waded in, and they hear that this party, the other party, or the opposition party had won in 10 states, but they come and then turn everything and give it to the ruling party simply because they want to please the president.
Now,
that's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah, indeed. There are some who believe that, listen, if we want to get things right, it has to begin and end with high-quality elections, free, fair, credible, and acceptable elections. That if people are beaten fair and square, they wouldn't head to the courts. But some have also said that, you know, because of the political culture in this country, the courts have now become a permanent fixture in our electoral process, that no matter how good the elections are, people will always head to the courts because they have a sense of entitlement that they deserve to win. And they can win it you know, through the window if they are not able to do so through the ballot. The window here being the courts, of course. Do you think that this is a fair characterization of what's going on in this country right now?
I won't blame anyone you know, that makes such a commentary, because I'm a Nigerian, and I know our Nigerian culture of the fact that a Nigerian who sees an election that went through fairly, creditably, and without any breach of any of the laws, yet his perception could be, I would contest, I would challenge this. And his thought might be, he would go to the tribunal, go to the courts, and try and convince the judges by way of either giving them gratification so that they turn this judgment in his favor and make him the winner and declare him the winner at the end of the day. When he saw it all, he went through it. For instance, when we introduced all these electronic, you know, devices in these votings, and you know very well that you went through, people were accredited. If your name and your thumbprint and all this doesn't get through, you don't get an opportunity to vote. And at the collation too, you had your agents. Your agents came and confessed to you. The collation was done neatly. Yes, your votes, we discovered, we checked everything. As far as I'm concerned, it was just unfortunate. We lost. Yet, like I said, most Nigerians have that belief that you still don't go to congratulate you know, the winner. To concede. To concede the defeat. You go and challenge it. But it's also very, very unfortunate. And that's why till today, people respect President Goodluck, Ebele Jonathan, for that singular act of conceding defeat. Many people have been calling him names. Those that were in the party with him, it was said they were till today. Some people have not forgiven him, but history will always give President Jonathan a pride of place for that singular act he did, which up till today there's no other person that has done it in this history of this country. So I want to believe such a characterization doesn't really go well for the judiciary. It gives the picture that no election is concluded or will be conclusive unless, you know, the matter ends up in court, which is not supposed to be the case. Do you think also
that the judiciary is a victim in this? I mean, it's not asking for these cases to come, but you know, it has to deal with it anyway. Precisely.
The judiciary is just being a villain. They're just giving a dog a bad name in order to hang it. Because otherwise, at the commencement of each election period, the tribunals are being set up. And if at the end of the day, no petitions come, the judges will wind up and go back to their various courts and resume their normal constitutional role of judges in their respective courts. But when the petitions come, obviously, the worst scenario will be when you would want to, you know, or you have a petition, election petition, you bring it up, and they will tell you there are no judges. No tribunals have been constituted or put in place. But that is where at the end of the day, you may end up thinking no justice has been given to you because you found out that the elections did not go on fairly, it wasn't conducted creditably, and hence you have a cost to go to a tribunal, but no tribunal in place. So that is the reason why it is also part of the electoral system, part of our system, that as soon as election matters are conducted and concluded, the judiciary will have to be ready. And if you come and don't knock, they just go back and do their work. So if there are such insinuations, around trying to give a very bad name to the judiciary, it's not as if they're the ones that are beckoning, but it is the bad politicians, those that supposed not to go to the tribunal, that will come in order to give the judiciary a bad name. And we also hope and pray that what the Supreme Court did of recent will cascade down to the tribunals and the Court of Appeal in the future, such that they would just discover that all these efforts they're doing will come to naught.
Right. And just as we round up, you did talk about earlier how the law is a work in progress. At any point in time, there's no perfect law. Give me a sense of where the improvements need to come in, because before the next general election, which is in 3 years, we have a lot of work to do to fine-tune the Electoral Act that we have and the processes that we've put in place for not just our elections, but also when it comes to adjudicating some of these electoral cases. Where do you think the focus should be in attempting to perfect some of the flaws within the provisions?
Yes, you see, from the barrage of litigations and the cases that went through and the judgments that also were passed by the courts, a lot of gaps have been realized. And I'm happy, even yesterday, I had in the National Assembly the House of Reps wing of the Committee on Review of the 1999 Constitution. The chairman, because there is co-chair of the House of Reps, that's the Deputy Speaker, was making mention of the fact that the Constitution or constitutional amendment is an ongoing process. They listen to Nigerians, the legal profession, and those who participated in this election process to come up with suggestions that would need, instead of amending the Electoral Act, perhaps the amendment ought to come from the Constitution. If there are constitutional issues that you think is better, we put it in the Constitution so that it will be permanent, and the process of amending it will be as cumbersome, and not as simple, as easy as amending an electoral a law. So this might be one effort, that we Nigerians can look up to. And secondly, especially with these issues that came up at the tribunal, this aspect of the electronic voting, where the country spent billions on procuring this equipment, these hardwares. And when these hardwares were finally utilized, people maybe where the INEC did not carry out or did not implement what they were supposed, what even the law said the gadgets should be used for. And it was held that it was discretionary. It was at the discretion of INEC to make use of them. Then why commit the nation? Why use taxpayers' money, billions of money, into procuring all these devices? So such an amendment can now be effected to make it compulsory. If at all there was a statement or there was some sections in the law that made the judiciary to concur, with the INEC, that they had, or it was at their own discretion for such electronic voting devices to be used, then this then calls for an amendment.
Right.
When you make an amendment saying, for instance, it is not discretionary, it must be this. It must be the fact that you have to apply them and you have to make use of them. It's compulsory. If you don't make use of them, then that election will not stand. It has to be repeated.
So get rid of all the ambiguity
exactly.
in the Electoral Act, as well as all the provisions.
Precisely.
And let's be very clear about what Nigerians can expect. Okay, very interesting conversation, Prof. Thank you most kindly for joining us this morning. Really appreciate your insight and your perspective on some of these issues that many Nigerians still find confusing or hard to really square those circles around why we are where we are, with some of these judgments that continue to leave many Nigerians feeling disappointed by what the pronouncements were. Thank you most kindly for joining us, Professor Maxwell Gidado. We really appreciate you for stopping by this morning.
Thanks.
And that is our conversation with Professor Maxwell Gidado, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former Dean, Faculty of Law at the Nasarawa State University, speaking on Nigerian electoral jurisprudence and what many Nigerians have witnessed over the past few months since the litigations of the 2023 general elections began, and most of them are being concluded at the Supreme Court. All right, time to take a look at the papers, the front pages of some of these select national dailies this morning, to give you a sense of the stories that have been reported today, the ones making the front pages. We start with a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper for today. So here's what it looks like for today, 1st of February 2024. CSOs to Tinubu: Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso's exit from ECOWAS poses security threats. What must be done to make the Naira rise again? Reno Mokri. I mean, I thought he was just an opinion kind of person. I don't know if he has the requisite financial or economic background to, opine on this, but everybody has an opinion about something, so I suppose that goes. If you want to read his thoughts, it's available on page 3. Amid insecurity, NEF, that's the Northern Elders Forum, Ohaneze, civil society organizations, angry over Tinubu's private trip to Paris. The presidency says he's on top of the situation. First Bank Holding appoints Otedola board chairman. Wike's issue not novel, PDP intact, according to Governor Fintri. Religious sect laundering money for terrorists, according to the EFCC. Naira drops to 1,400 Naira at the official market. Senate summons CBN governor over free fall. BDCs close shop today in Abuja. All right, very interesting takes there. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper for today now. The front page of the Nation newspaper: Otedola is FBN Holdings chairman. Government to fix Marina, other Lagos shorelines. And CBN worries over banks' excessive forex exposure. Naira depreciation. Senate invites Cardoso. Nigeria does need some answers to the burning question about why the Naira is falling into a bottomless pit. Obaseki: firms seal 228 billion Naira deal on Benin-Asaba Expressway. More on that on page 3 of the Nation newspaper. EFCC traces 7 billion Naira fraud cash to religious group. Agency uncovers faith-based groups laundering money for terrorists. I think that's not the punch, really. I think the punch is when the chairman said, they were stopped by a court order from further investigating the matter. And I think that's what would more worry most Nigerians in relation to that story. Also on the front page of the Nation newspaper, below the nameplate, or rather at the bottom, is Supreme Court lambast ex-Adama Rec Hudu Ari for his, quote, irresponsible criminality. The Supreme Court there is showing some emotion about what happened in Adamawa. Right, these are some of the stories. You can follow a lot more. There is a heartfelt story there that you can track about what happened in that secondary school in Ekiti following the abduction of some students by terrorists who are now demanding 10 million naira on their captured victims. The Punch newspaper is up next, so let's take a look at the front page of the Punch. Tinubu directs Attorney General of the Federation, Lokpo Bidi, to end $1.3 billion oil block dispute. Shareholders excited as Otedola becomes FBN, that's First Bank of Nigeria Holdings chairman. What about customers though? Are they excited? More on that on the pages of the Punch newspaper. Abductors flagged Ekiti school children. This is according to proprietor. Or flogged rather, I beg your pardon. Oh my goodness. It's just really heartbreaking, really. CBN orders banks to sell excess dollars in 24 hours. Are there excess dollars in circulation? Or supposed to be in circulation? Banks may sell over $5 billion, says official. Cardoso faces Senate Tuesday over Naira free fall. And you can see some of the pictures there from the devastation in that church fire in Lagos. And the story goes, House of David loses multi-million naira Lagos church to fire. EFCC probing Nigeria Air deal, according to the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo. Ekiti Obas threatened to invoke Yoruba gods against kidnappers. I say go for it, really. Let's go traditional. And if that solves the problem, sure, why not? Makinde gives companies with explosives 72-hour ultimatum. And what happened in Bodija is still fresh on the minds of most Nigerians following that devastation and the loss of lives and the livelihood of most people. Finally, we take a look at the front page of the Guardian newspaper for today. Similar stories. CBN frantically tightens noose on banks' forex operations as well as speculators. Who is going to win at the end of the day? History shows that the market always wins, but let's hope CBN wins this one for all our sakes. AFCC traces 7 billion naira to religious bodies, alleges faith leaders laundering funds for terrorists. Monarchs killing. Oni George call for community policing, input of ex-service chiefs. Reps set December 2025 to deliver a new constitution. Well, that's good news. Northern groups tackle Tinubu over withdrawal of 3 nations from ECOWAS. 1 in every 10 extremely poor Nigerians or people live in Nigeria, says World Bank. I mean, at this point, we're just sounding like a broken record. We know this already, don't we? Poor preparation logistics stall student loan scheme. Yes, it was supposed to be this January, this year, but unfortunately, I guess they're not done dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Well, let's get some insight into some of these interesting developing stories. Joining us this morning is Editor-in-Chief of Deadline Nigeria newspapers, Malan Nasir is joining us this morning to provide some context and some background information regarding some of the big stories this morning. Malan Nasir, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
Right. Where do we start from? Let's start with the big one, insecurity. Everyone is talking about it. However, there is a political undertone, and I dare say it started with the former vice president and the man that went head-to-head with Tinubu and came second in the presidential election last year. In reaction to that, Northern Elders Forum, Ohaneze, civil society organizations seem to share, some of those sentiments, saying that the president should not be out of this country at this time when many Nigerians are, reeling from the impact of this growing insecurity in the south, in the north, in other parts of the country also. Your sense of, what this actually means?
Well, incidentally, it tallied with what I actually said last week when the presidency issued the statement that the president was embarking on a private visit. What I said then was that, there was no information. Actually, they denied us all the things that we needed to know, because if we to be told, this is particularly what the president, is going to do in France. Probably some of the questions we are now asking wouldn't have even arisen. And just like the former vice president said, you can't, he actually accused the president of playing fiddle while the nation is swimming in ocean of insecurity or something to that effect. And then now the Northern Elders Forum, Ohaneze, and CSOs are basically saying the same thing. Probably I would have loved to hear also what Afenifere, since we have made it like original reactions to what the president did. I would have loved to see what their own take will be. But going forward, you know, it's things like this that allow people, you know, to be able to come up with all sorts of rumors, you know, things that nobody even knows where they are coming from. So honestly, the presidency going forward, like I said, should be clear. Anytime something like this is coming up, like I said last week, I don't know what private trip means. What do you mean by private? A president embarking on a private visit when the nation is literally demanding his attention. And so if going forward they allow us to understand what the president will be away from, the better for all Nigerians.
And do you think this is politicizing the whole conversation, or is this an honest conversation about what is expected of the commander-in-chief?
Well, yes, I saw a number of personalities who have spoken on this, trying to say that some people have already entered campaign mode and what have you. Well, you allowed it. That's basically the fact. If you give them the chance, of course, they will want to play politics. What do you expect politicians to do? If you give them the chance, that's exactly what they will do. So I don't think it's about politicizing the issue. It's about the president giving the opposition and other Nigerians a cause for concern, because so many people have already started reading meanings into the president. Some are saying, no, he's there for health reasons. And I also saw the presidency trying to downplay that by, you know, releasing some pictures of the president with, is it Boala, who visited him in France and things like that. So honestly, I don't see it as politics. You know, I see it as the presidency not doing what they are supposed to do.
But isn't it also true that, you know, running a country is not a one-man show? That, you know, while he was still here, this insecurity was there, even before the inception of his administration, that, you know, making it all about the president's presence in this country is an oversimplification of the situation.
Well, to an extent, that's true, but, you know, he is the president, and there are so many people who...
Is it for symbolic reasons?
Yeah, for symbolic reasons, certainly, because there are people who will want to act only when the president is there to see, you know, what they are doing. If they know that the president will not even see, will not, like, get to see their efforts, then why make them in the first place? So honestly, I think, yes, if all our institutions are working the way they are supposed to, probably we may even go autopilot without requiring the services of the president, unfortunately. Right. But now that we have a president, you know, these are things that you swore to uphold things like this. So for you to be away when we are, like, literally looking for you towards you for guidance, honestly, I don't think it's good.
The presidency's response is that, you know, first of all, Atiku's comments were reckless, and that now, regards to everything else that was said afterwards, the president is on top of the situation. Do you think that that answers all the concerns that Nigerians have expressed?
Honestly, I don't think so, because we all have rights to be reckless with statements like this, because you have like I said, you have given him the chance to come in. If there was nothing like this, probably he will have waited, you know, for a sleep somewhere for him to also like latch on the situation. But now that you are giving him things like this, of course, even if you are accusing him of starting the 2027 election campaign, well, you gave him the chance.
Okay. The governor of Adamawa State is speaking on the developments in the PDP. When asked, he said, listen, everything is fine. It doesn't matter what Nigerians think is happening with the PDP. Everything is fine. Everything is under control. Wike's presence in the APC government does not bother them. And that, you know, he's not the first person who is in the opposition party that's working in the national government. We've been here before several times in the past, and Nigerians shouldn't make a big deal out of it. Do you think that there is some truth to that, you know, comment, or is he glossing over the real issues?
He is certainly glossing over the real issues. He's like playing politics, even though this is pure politics. But, you know, perception is everything. If you allow people to think that the PDP is not a serious party, that's what they will get away with. But if you are saying what we are seeing is actually not the reality, then you should come out and show us how what we are thinking of is actually not the reality. Because my thinking is the PDP is not, like showing itself as a credible alternative to the APC. Because if you cannot put your house in order, if there are people that need to be sanctioned, sanction them. Why are you like dilly-dallying? If you need to take action, take action. But right now, it's like they are trying to see how not to rock the boat, so that they will end up without probably a party by the time we'll reach 2027. And there are all these talks about some of the opposition parties coming together to see how they can confront the APC.
Okay, maybe PDP is playing dead. Who knows? Just so you can, deceive other parties to make it look like they're not, under one umbrella, as the case may be. But yesterday we were all, perplexed to some extent. Those who were not privy to this information, that the EFCC has uncovered a connection between a religious sect, to use the words of the chairman, and terrorism financing, money laundering, and terrorism financing. Doesn't seem so far-fetched, but we're wondering what led to the non-prosecution of this particular matter, because as he did say in his speech that before they could even get things in motion, they were stopped by a court order. So he seemed to be laying credence to the conversation that even our religious organizations are a part of the problem. Many would say we know this already, it's an open secret. But what are your thoughts about this revelation?
Well, I don't like, heads of agencies talking about issues that are like still on the fire, still cooking, Why should you tell us something that you still leave us to continue guessing? Because you've not told us.
You think this is an open wound?
Well, probably our legal, judiciary correspondence and what have you. This is an assignment for them to actually
figure out who is involved.
Yeah, already I saw one of the papers mentioning that they traced 7 billion to a church also, and then the second one they only said a religious group. So you allow Nigerians to just guess, and if it is something that is still before the court that you are trying to maybe set aside so that you can continue with your investigation. What happens to all the things that we know institutions do? You could have leaked, something like this to show Nigerians that, these are some of the problems that we are having in our quest to rid the country of corruption and things like that. But to just, this is like trying to hug the headlines so that maybe you are saying something that will guarantee you, being part of the cover of newspapers, and somehow he has succeeded in doing that. What he has not succeeded in doing is in reassuring Nigerians that this is something that they are really working on and they are likely to get to the bottom of it in the next shortest possible time.
Do you understand, his frustration that, the society is not honest about fighting corruption? It's almost as if we're not all on board. If religious groups, I mean, not all of them, granted, but if religious groups are also involved in undermining the society by engaging in illegal acts like money laundering, for instance, and terrorism financing, that in itself says a lot about our society, doesn't it?
Well, sometimes when we talk about religious groups, what are we actually trying to say? Are they not people? The fact that they are just part of a religious organization does not mean they are not humans. They are also susceptible to all these human failings that you see. And that is why we have, somebody, to lead the fight against corruption. And when the president decided to settle for Olu Koyede,
right.
Honestly, it's because he has seen, maybe his ability or his capacity to deliver on that mandate. So honestly, I think that is what we should be hearing from the EFCC chairman, rather than, coming out to complain, just telling us about your frustrations, like even putting doubts in our minds that maybe at the end of the day, you may not.
It's a hopeless endeavor.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't think this is the way to go about it.
But what about the courts, though? I remember this is like re-echoing what former President Muhammadu Buhari said, of his frustration about prosecuting corruption in this country. He says the courts are his problems. Because and it does appear that there is some credibility to that argument.
That's very true. Honestly, our courts and even by extension our legal practitioners, they should worry about their position in the Nigerian project. Why should you issue any what do they even call it?
Injunctions or orders
to stop, an investigation. This is an investigation. Nobody is saying that you are as guilty as charged. No. Allow them to do their work. But our courts are, even though we don't know the information that they acted on, for them to reel out those injunctions and what have you. But honestly, they should worry about their place in the Nigerian project, because once the people believe that they cannot get justice from the courts, or the courts cannot be trusted to do what is expected of them, then maybe they will just be receiving salaries and then nobody will be respecting them.
I've never seen a bottomless pit before, but if there is one, I suppose that's where the naira is is right now, falling and continuously falling, and it appears there's no stopping it, despite everything that the CBN is doing so far to stop this free fall of the naira. Every week we continue to see new lows being set as a record. What are your thoughts about all this going on? And now we understand that BDC operators are closing shop because they say everything is going digital now. And as we do know, it's either you evolve or die in this modern economy. But what are your thoughts, first and foremost, about the naira free fall?
Well, from what I can see, the CBN is still struggling to come up with a workable solution to this problem. Because for you to say banks should sell all the excess dollars in there, what does that mean? And if the banks are to sell them, who is going to buy them? Can people actually afford it? And I saw a newspaper yesterday saying even at the official, for the first time, since the Tinubu government came into being, the official rate, even went above the black market rate. And, that's a first. And if we are seeing that, then it means only God knows, where the naira will end or be in the next few days. But honestly, I don't like you telling us something today and then changing it tomorrow. I also saw experts trying to say that rather than do all this, maybe we should go back to the Buhari era, maybe decide to ban some things from accessing dollars, because right now, even in Nigeria, people are using dollars to do transactions. Why should that be the case?
Yeah.
Our means of transaction is the naira, so why should you require...
You think there's a further dollarization of the local economy?
That's the fact, because even schools, people have been saying, this is not the first time people will be making all these allegations that even schools are now charging in dollars, and parents are obliging, and then the government is not doing anything, probably because if they want the dollar, they have access to it. But for the average Nigerian, honestly, that's not the case. So I hope very soon we will get to find a workable solution to...
Do you think the Senate summons is going to lead to some kind of solution? Or is this just one of those lip service, eye service kind of thing that, it's just another interactive session that amounts to nothing?
Well, the CBN governor may not even go there, because there is a precedence. They have told us a number and again that Emefiele, they summoned him a number of times, but he refused to show up, and nothing happened to him. And this is the same thing with the current president, current governor. I don't know what exactly he will be telling them that he has
told the
Nigerians. And if there is a solution to it, that Nigerians need to know. I don't think he needs to go to the Senate for him to do that. You know, this is something that he should do because he also has a name, he has a reputation, which he wants to protect in any way. So I don't think the Senate interactive session or whatever they call it, I don't think it will lead to anything significant.
Maybe let him do his job, and he's good as his job. Maybe he wouldn't need to go to the Senate in the first place. All right, before we wrap things up, let's talk about the ECOWAS crisis, because more opinions are coming out in regards to what the impact will likely be, and that Nigeria is at the receiving end of the security challenges that may arise as a result of this breakaway from the regional bloc by ECOWAS, Niger, Mali, by Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. What do you make of this? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Already, we understand the quagmire we're in security-wise, but what does this breakaway from these three countries mean in terms of complicating the security challenge within the region?
Well, Nigeria is certainly at the receiving end. There is no argument about that, because if you look at, for instance, our border with Niger Republic, it stretches from Sokoto to Maiduguri to Borno. That's like 1,000+ kilometers. And right now we are still having some challenges, stopping all these arms dealers, from smuggling weapons, through our borders. So without the cooperation of Niger, certainly we will end up with, ECOWAS is basically Nigeria, because if you look at the population, if you look at the resources and whatever you can come up with, it's certainly about Nigeria. So Nigeria should find or should lead the charge, to see how they can handle this matter, because even though I've had so many diplomats, so many experts, explaining the fact that all these junta leaders are actually doing it to frustrate ECOWAS from their ability to checkmate them. That's true, but honestly, we should look at the bigger picture. Nigerians will suffer if this is allowed to go without being addressed.
Do you think that there's a chance for a bilateral relationship after, if the breakaway, if the withdrawal succeeds?
Yeah, I think so, because just like the diplomat you featured yesterday, is it yesterday?
Day before yesterday.
Day before yesterday, or he actually explained that, so you don't even have to make it in the open. You can go through the back channels to see how you can handle this, because it has serious implications, not just in security, but business and other issues.
Right. Madam Nasser, thank you very much for the insight. It's been a very interesting one, hearing your thoughts on some of these developing issues today. We're going to have to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you.
I appreciate you very much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Okay, that's our show for you today. Thank you most kindly for your time and your company. Daybreak returns tomorrow live at 8 a.m. exclusive as always on Trust TV. Until then, it's goodbye from me, Abdullahi Ahmed, and the rest of the team. Don't forget, 360 Sports is coming up at the top of the hour. Good morning.